Gamer Braves!
What's up, Danger? This is Juan Amiral from Gamer Braves, and today we're going to be talking about the sequel to Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales. So, quick recap if you don't know. Miles Morales first appeared in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics universe, where, spoiler alert, Peter Parker eats it. Rather than comic booking him back to life a few issues later, Miles kept on as that universe as Spider-Man. Rather than being a character in a fun alternate universe, however, Marvel decided to comic book him into the mainstream Marvel universe, where the idea of him being a sort of apprentice Spider-Man has only gotten more popular, now even more so with the release of Into the Spider-Verse. The game builds on that apprentice idea and takes place after the events of Marvel's Spider-Man. Peter's real life gets in the way, causing him to have to leave New York in Miles' hands. And naturally, that's when big things start to happen, with Miles going on his own big adventure involving his own boss fights as he protects Harlem. So those expecting Miles to just be a teenager skin for Spider-Man are in for a bit of a surprise. Miles has a few tricks up his sleeve, such as his Venom Punch ability. This acts as a powerful guard break, also opening up enemies to more damage as long as they're in the Venom stun. You can upgrade it further to do things like pass it along to other enemies who come into contact with Venom stunned enemies, as well as raise the duration. There's also his camouflage ability, which lets him go incognito like a lonely dude on a Friday night. It's great for dropping the heat, as most enemies who are about to beat you will drop their aggro, though later enemies will still have methods of seeing through your camouflage. One minor complaint about this camouflage is that it's also used in the game's stealth sections. While it's great for giving players an out if they screw up, veterans of the original Spider-Man may find it too easy since it's on a very short cooldown. Miles also has his own gadgets like holograms and gravity mines, which work better with his kit. They've also taken steps that made Miles Morales so popular with Into the Spider-Verse, and given him a unique vibe with the game's music. Though I don't think we could play any of it without getting into any trouble right now. Thanks, YouTube. But my point is this is a lot more than just a retextured Peter Parker, and the opportunity for more levels designed for Miles is worth the price of admission alone. That being said, they're a lot harder than the Peter Parker levels, largely in part to being balanced around Miles' Venom Punch. But veteran web-slingers should welcome the challenge, even if that means needing to get yourself back up every so often. On top of that, everything you loved from Marvel's Spider-Man is still there, like its great web-swinging system as well as an array of customizable suits. Miles gets several of his own to dress up. Personally, my favorite is his Spider-Verse suit, which even has the blotchy paint marks on its hands as well as the on-trees animation. They've also reworked the suits a little with the addition of mods. Rather than having abilities tied to suits, you can choose mods that buff Miles, though some of these are tied to specific suits. The combat's also great, feeling like a much more fully realized Arkham combat. It's fast-paced enough that you're not just hitting the counter button and awkwardly doing the jig until the next one comes up. As well as the upgrade system, letting you add more moves to your arsenal. Swinging through New York is fun, though new players may be overwhelmed at first by all the different buttons. Miles doesn't have anything new to help him swing, and I'm glad. Swing was one of the most fun parts of the original. Trying to make Miles act differently just for the sake of variety would have been a bad move. One of the game's pitfalls though is that it's a lot shorter. It's only an 8-hour story, and seasoned veterans of Marvel's Spider-Man should have no trouble plowing through it. The plot also takes some predictable turns, especially if you've seen Into the Spider-Verse. These aren't necessarily black marks on the game, but more flags of interest for you to look out for. As for the game's short story, wanting more of a game is arguably not a bad problem to have, since it shows the game was good enough to leave people wanting more in the first place rather than relieved it was finally over. That being said, there's also a few bosses in the game, with some of them even double dipping and showing up multiple times. That can feel sometimes like this was just DLC elevated to sequel status. Oh, and we have to get into the new face for Peter Parker. Look, again, I'm not saying this is a huge black mark on the game, but the attempt to clearly make Pete look more like Tom Holland reeks of brand synergy with the MCU. And the fact Yuri Lowenthal is using his grown-up voice just doesn't mesh with the MCU-compliant babyface. And yes, I know it's not actually Tom Holland, but you can tell that's what they were going for. As a result, Peter looks like Miles' classmate, not his totally adult mentor. Marvel's Spider-Man, Miles Morales, gets a friendly neighborhood 8 out of 10. It leaps onto PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, 12th November 2020. Despite its nitpicks, Miles Morales is a pretty fun sequel to one of the most unique games on the PS4. Getting the Ultimate Edition also throws in a free copy of the original, remastered for the PS5. The game also runs pretty solidly on PS4, so don't let that PS5 launch title status make you think that just because the PS5 doesn't exist in your part of the world, this game's going to just be a loading screen simulator on last gen. This has been Juan Amiral from Gamer Braves. Excelsior!